enjoy the ride with Crystal Petrie Consultants.
Hello, my name is Crystal Petrie, and you are watching the Crystal Petrie Consulting Network. This month is the month of February, so you know what that means. African American history. Now, for me, African American history is American history and should be celebrated every month. But I am going to take advantage of February being African American History Month and educate you on maybe some lesser known African American history figures. Before I get started, go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel right now, as I will be posting videos about African American history the entire month, and you don't want to miss out. Now, if you would like for me to give a presentation or a workshop on African American history, I'm going to put my website in the description box below, and you can contact me there. Shirley Chisholm. Shirley Chisholm is not a widely known person when it comes to African American history. But any woman, any person of color, in any level of politics should wake up every morning and thank Shirley Chisholm. At least that's my opinion. I have been a fan and I have studied and read about Shirley Chisholm for over 20 years and counting. I'm actually currently reading her book, Unbought and Unbossed. I will post a link to the book in case you want to purchase it yourself. She wrote this book during a time when there was very limited seats for women and people of color in the political world. Shirley Chisholm did what many people during that time wouldn't dare do. She took on the status quo of the white race and, as she called it, the black good old boy political establishment. Shirley said she refused to waver until they understood she would never waver in her attempt to bring about equality for all. Her book, for real, is such a great read. And it's amazing because the stuff that she's talking about in 1970 and dealing with in 1970, we are literally still dealing with it today in 2022. Let's find out more about Shirley Chisholm. First, she was born in 1924. Shirley Chisholm is no longer with us. She was born in Brooklyn, New York. Her mother and father are both from Barbados. Shirley had two other sisters, both younger than she. Shirley spent a lot of time in Barbados visiting her grandmother and living in Brooklyn, New York. Her mother was very strict with all three of her girls, and her father demanded educational excellence. While in college, it was made very clear that Black students were not allowed in any social clubs. So Shirley and some of her friends created their own social club. This was Shirley's first attempt at making things equal for everyone. But thankfully, it did not stop there. When Shirley Chisholm was in Congress in 1968, she was the very first African American woman in Congress. Shirley referred to her fame, if you will, as having a double drawback. She was female and she had skin darkened by melanin. In her book, Shirley said women are a majority of the population, but they are treated like a minority group. The prejudice against them is so widespread that, ironically, most people do not even realize it exists. Indeed, most women don't realize it exists. The women even accept being paid less for doing the same work as a man. Does that sound familiar? It should, because we are still dealing with that today. They are as quick as any male to condemn a female who ventures outside the limits of the role that a man has assigned to females. Chisholm always said she was attacked more for being a female than she was for being Black. While in Congress, Shirley introduced more than 50 pieces of legislation and fought racial and gender inequality, all while doing so. She fought for the poor, she fought for the children, and she fought for ending the Vietnam War. Shirley also became the very first African American woman and the second woman ever to be put on the powerful House Rules Committee. In 1972, Shirley Chisholm became the first woman and the first African American to seek the nomination for President of the United States from one of the two major political parties. Her motto was unbought and unbossed, just like the title of her book. Shirley had numerous death threats and attempts on her life. Among the many things that Shirley was barred from, one of them was she was blocked from participating in any primary televised debates. But despite the death threats, the attempts, despite racism, sexism, unfair policies, and practices, Shirley still garnered 152 delegate votes. Shirley talks about at length how she was so mistreated by the predominantly male Congressional Black caucus during that time. And yet, she still overcame all of that and took on the establishment. She may not have won the presidency, but I will tell you this: Shirley Chisholm changed the foundation landscape for all women and people of color in the political arena. I, Shirley Chisholm, thank you for your boldness and your confidence in yourself and in your ability to see something wrong and do something about it. I personally think that every woman and every person of color in politics, whether that's state, local, federal, including Vice President Kamala Harris and President Barack Obama, should wake up every day and thank Shirley Chisholm for laying a foundation for them. As I end this video, I will end it with a quote from Miss Shirley Chisholm herself. Shirley Chisholm said, "I want history to remember me, not just as the first Black woman to be elected to Congress, not as the first Black woman to have made a bid for the presidency of the United States, but as a Black woman who lived in the 20th century and dared to be herself. I want to be remembered as a catalyst for change in America." And Shirley Chisholm, in 2022, that is exactly how I remember you. And I am passing on the message to everyone else so that they can remember you as a catalyst for change in America. If you haven't done so already, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel so you will know when I post another video about African American history. And if you are familiar with Shirley Chisholm, I want to hear your thoughts about her. Drop it in the comments and join the conversation. Don't forget, give me a thumbs up and happy African American History Month.
So inspired.